Alex was different, and everyone knew it. He was the son of a very important CEO, meaning his family had lots of money and a big house. You'd think that would make him popular with the other kids who also came from rich families. But it didn't. Instead, these other kids, with their fancy clothes and expensive toys, often made fun of Alex. They called him names like bookworm or quiet guy. While they zoomed around in mini sports cars or showed off their newest gadgets, Alex preferred to be tucked away in a corner, either reading a thick book about faraway lands or quietly tapping away on a computer keyboard. He wasn't loud or boastful like them. He didn't care about the latest fads. This made him an easy target for their jokes and teasing, setting him apart in a world where everyone else tried to be exactly the same. Even though Alex found comfort in his books and computer screen, a part of him still longed to be like the other kids. He watched them, how easily they laughed, how they formed their tight circles, and how they seemed to know all the secret handshakes of their world. He'd try to join in sometimes, forcing a smile when they told a joke he didn't quite understand, or pretending to be excited about a new video game he secretly found boring. He even tried playing soccer, stumbling over his own feet more often than hitting the ball. It felt like wearing clothes that didn't fit, awkward and uncomfortable. Inside, he was still the boy who loved the quiet hum of his computer and the adventure within the pages of a book, but he pushed that part of himself down, hoping to blend in, to just be one of them. He wanted to be accepted, to not always feel like an outsider looking in. One warm evening, the grand gates of the CEO's mansion swung open for a huge party. It wasn't just any party. It was the annual summer gala, a sparkling event where all the most important families gathered. The sprawling gardens were lit with twinkling lights, and the air buzzed with music and laughter. Fancy cars lined the long driveway, bringing in the children of other wealthy business owners, politicians, and famous people. These were the same kids who usually made Alex feel small and out of place. Tonight, they were all dressed in their finest clothes, their smiles wide and confident. They ran around the manicured lawns, played by the giant swimming pool, and gathered in chattering groups, their voices carrying through the evening air. For Alex, it was both a chance to try and finally belong, and a reminder of how different he truly was from this glittering crowd. Amidst the sparkling chaos of the party, Alex found himself near a group of the loudest kids. He'd overheard them talking about the latest video game, and a tiny spark of hope flickered inside him. Maybe, just maybe, this was his chance. He nervously cleared his throat and, with a shy smile, began to tell them about an idea for a new kind of game he was working on. It wasn't about fighting or racing, but about building worlds and solving puzzles in a way that was both fun and smart. He spoke with a quiet passion, his eyes lighting up as he described the unique challenges and creative freedom his game would offer. He even mentioned how it could help people learn about new ideas. But as he spoke, the eager faces of the other kids slowly changed. Their smiles twisted into smirks, and whispers began to ripple through the group. The whispers grew louder, then burst into open laughter. One of the boys, a tall kid named Mark whose father owned a string of fancy hotels, clapped Alex on the shoulder, but it wasn't a friendly gesture. A game about building worlds and learning. Mark snorted, his voice dripping with fake amusement. Who wants that, Alex? People want excitement, action. Your little puzzle game sounds like homework. Another girl, Chloe, whose family controlled a huge fashion empire, chimed in. Yeah, it sounds totally boring. And it would never make any money. Nobody's going to spend their allowance on something so educational. Their laughter echoed, sharp and unkind, cutting through the festive sounds of the party. Alex felt his cheeks burn red, and his heart sank. The hope he'd felt just moments before vanished, replaced by a familiar sting of embarrassment and rejection. They didn't understand, and worse, they didn't care to try. The laughter of the other kids stung worse than any bee. Alex felt a deep sadness spread through him, a heavy blanket of disappointment. He mumbled a quick goodbye that no one heard and slipped away from the bright lights and noisy crowds. He walked through the beautiful gardens, past the laughing faces, until he found a quiet path leading back to the main house. He didn't say anything to his parents, just went straight to his room. The party music still drifted faintly through his window, but he closed it, shutting out the sounds of their fun. He could have given up, thrown away his game ideas, and tried even harder to be like them. But something inside Alex, a quiet stubbornness, wouldn't let him. Instead of letting their unkind words stop him, they made him even more determined. He pulled out his laptop, a secret world of code and creativity, and began to work. He would prove them wrong, not by being loud or flashy, but by making his game even better, all in the quiet privacy of his own room. The next morning, the bright sunshine seemed to mock the sudden dark clouds gathering over the city's wealthiest families. While Alex was still quietly working on his game, unaware of the storm brewing, phones began to ring off the hook in mansions across town. Important adults, who just last night had been laughing and chatting at the party, now had worried lines on their faces. News channels flashed urgent headlines. The happy, carefree mood of the previous evening was gone, replaced by a wave of shock and fear. Something big, something very bad, had happened. It wasn't just one family, but several of the richest, most powerful families in the city who woke up to a terrible truth. Their fortunes, which seemed as solid as mountains, were suddenly shaking. A huge problem, like a sudden earthquake, had struck the very foundations of their wealth. For families like Mark's and Chloe's, the news was devastating. Their family businesses, which had stood strong for generations and were valued at an astounding $900 million each, began to crumble. It was like watching a tall building suddenly start to shake and crack. One moment, they were at the top of the world, and the next, everything was falling apart. Stock prices plummeted, deals vanished into thin air, and important customers pulled out their money. The news reports were filled with words like collapse and ruin. The parents, who had always seemed so powerful and in control, now looked pale and frightened. The children, who had boasted about their wealth, suddenly saw their parents' worried faces and understood that their lives were about to change in a very big, scary way. The money that had bought them their fancy cars and designer clothes was quickly disappearing. The cause of this sudden disaster wasn't just bad luck. It was a clever and mean plan. A rival company, one that had been quietly watching and waiting, had put a secret scheme into action. They had found a weak spot in the way the other big companies handled their money and information. Then, like a sneaky fox, they used this weakness to cause big problems. They spread false rumors, made important computer systems act strangely, and even managed to steal some very important business secrets. It was all done very carefully, so it looked like a natural accident at first. But soon, everyone realized it was a planned attack. This rival company had tricked many businesses, causing them to lose trust and money very quickly. This secret plan was the real reason the $900 million fortunes of families like Mark's and Chloe's were now falling apart. The change in the rich kids was startling. Just hours after mocking Alex, their carefree smiles had vanished, replaced by wide eyes and trembling lips. They heard their parents on the phone, their voices tight with panic. The servants, who usually moved quietly through their grand homes, now looked worried and spoke in hushed tones. Mark, who had laughed the loudest at Alex, now looked pale, his usual swagger completely gone. Chloe, who had dismissed Alex's game as unprofitable, was seen crying in a corner, clutching her phone as she overheard news about her family's fashion empire. These children had always known a life of endless luxuries. Money was simply always there, like the air they breathed. Now, the air felt thin. They saw their parents scrambling, their faces etched with fear, and they understood for the first time that their world was not as solid as they believed. The fancy cars, the private jets, the huge houses, all of it suddenly felt like it could vanish, like smoke. They were scared, truly scared, as the foundation of their lives crumbled around them. While chaos reigned in other wealthy households, Alex's home was different. He had always been a careful observer, a trait often mistaken for shyness. Early that morning, while the others were still sleeping off their party fun or waking up to bad news, Alex was already at his computer. He wasn't just working on his game. He was also checking the financial news, something he did every day. He loved to understand how things worked, especially the big, complicated systems of money and business. As the first reports of trouble flashed across his screen, he didn't just see headlines. He saw patterns. He saw connections that others missed. He had been quietly following the rival company for a while, noticing their strange moves and new computer tools. He put the pieces together in his mind. He knew something big was coming, even before the adults fully grasped the depth of the problem. His quiet nature and love for deep thinking had given him an early warning. What the other kids didn't know, and couldn't guess, was that Alex's quiet hours spent coding weren't just for fun. He was building something truly special. For months, fueled by his love for puzzles and his keen understanding of how computers work, he had been crafting a new kind of digital security system. His game, which they had dismissed as silly, was secretly a testbed for this very advanced technology. It was a system designed to protect valuable information and money from clever attacks, much like the one the rival company had just launched. He'd built strong walls of code, like an invisible fortress, to keep digital secrets safe. What started as a creative hobby had grown into something powerful and useful, a solution that could guard against the very kind of trouble that was now causing so much panic. The game Alex was building, the one that the other kids had laughed at, wasn't just any game. It was called Fortress of Coins. On the surface, it looked like a fun puzzle game where players built strong castles and protected their digital gold from sneaky goblins. But the real magic was hidden deep inside its code. Alex had created a special kind of digital lock that made it almost impossible for anyone to steal the in-game money or fake new coins. This system was very smart because it learned new ways to keep things safe every time someone tried to break in. It was like a very clever guard dog that got smarter with every trick a thief tried. The kids at the party had seen only the fun, simple parts of the game, not understanding that Alex had made a powerful tool for keeping digital money safe. They just thought it was a kid's silly project. Seeing the worried look on his father's face, Alex knew it was time. He quietly approached his dad, who was pacing his study, deep in frantic phone calls. "Dad," Alex began, his voice soft but steady. His father looked up, surprised, his brow furrowed with stress. "I think I can help." Alex then pulled up his laptop and began to explain. He didn't talk about goblins or castles, but about the core technology behind Fortress of Coins. He showed his dad how the game's special code could create unbreakable digital barriers, how it could track money flow with perfect accuracy, and how it was designed to spot and stop the kind of sneaky attacks that were hurting the other companies. He explained how this same tech could be used to protect their company's own valuable information and money from the rivals' plan, turning their weaknesses into strengths. As Alex finished his explanation, a hush fell over the study. His father, the powerful CEO, looked at his son with new eyes. The stress lines on his face softened, replaced by a look of wonder and immense pride. He couldn't believe that his quiet, game-loving son had created something so brilliant, so timely. "Alex," his dad said, his voice thick with emotion, "this is incredible." He immediately called his top technical team, telling them to drop everything and listen to Alex. At first, they were doubtful, thinking it was just a kid's idea. But as Alex patiently showed them the code, the logic, and the strong defenses he had built, their doubts turned into amazement. Together, with Alex guiding them, they quickly put his system into place across their company's networks. It was like building a super strong shield just in time. Alex's father knew, deep in his heart, that his son's clever thinking was the only thing that could save their family business from the same fate as the others. As the days turned into a week, the difference between Alex's family and the others became clear. While Alex's family business, protected by his clever security system, stood strong and even started to recover, the companies of Mark, Chloe, and the other rich kids continued to crumble. Their parents faced huge losses, and soon, news spread of mansions being sold, private jets being grounded, and fancy cars being repossessed. The endless stream of luxuries that these children had always known dried up. They were forced to move to smaller homes, attend regular schools, and learn what it was like to not have everything handed to them. Meanwhile, Alex's family rode out the storm, their wealth safe and their company intact, a quiet testament to Alex's hidden genius. They were untouched by the financial ruin that had swept through their peers. For Mark, Chloe, and the rest of the rich kids, losing their money was a harsh lesson. They quickly learned that shiny things and big houses could disappear in a flash. They saw their parents struggle, not just with money, but with losing their friends and their standing in the community. It made them think about what truly mattered. They had always valued popularity and wealth above all else, often making fun of anyone who didn't fit into their narrow view of success. But now, they understood that kindness, smart thinking, and real skills were far more important. They saw how their parents, despite all their money, had been helpless against the attack. They realized that true strength came not from what you owned, but from what you knew and how you treated others. This hard lesson began to change them, making them think about their actions and choices in a whole new light. With his family's business saved and thriving, Alex himself became a quiet hero. News of his smart solution spread, not just in business circles, but everywhere. People learned that the silly game he was building was actually a super clever way to keep money safe on the internet. Fortress of Coins was released to the public, not just as a game, but also as a way to show how strong digital security could be. It became incredibly popular, with millions of players who loved the fun challenges and, without even knowing it, learned about important security ideas. The very people who had laughed at Alex, the ones who said his game would never make money, now saw him celebrate it. His quiet way of doing things, his love for learning, and his kind heart had won in the end. He proved that true value comes from smart ideas and hard work, not from how much money your family has.